This is off record, unless you want to put it on the record. Okay?
Is this something that you want for public consumption?
I don't know. Maybe it should be for public consumption. So when we left the courtroom, after the judge heard the 1-hour presentation being led by Kent Brown of the Crown, and the 1-hour presentation of defense led by Sean Buckley, the constitutional lawyer, and we left the courtroom, I remember how upset Sean and David Hardy were. We've lost this. You heard him. You heard and saw him, and you heard what he said. That most likely he was going to rule in favor of the Crown on this voyeur. He's already, I'm not going to say prejudiced himself, but he already has that thinking.
Welcome back to Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. This is part 2 of our 3-part 30th anniversary special, a series reflecting on 3 decades of discovery, resistance, and unwavering conviction. In the previous episode, we explored the personal crisis and nutritional breakthrough that gave birth to Truehope. In today's conversation, founder Anthony Stephan and his son David Stephan, who is Vice President of Truehope Canada, take us into the next chapter, the one that changed everything. As word spread about a revolutionary multi-nutrient formula known as Empower Plus, thousands of individuals began reporting profound improvements in serious mental health conditions, but with growing awareness came growing opposition. This episode dives into the most turbulent years in Truehope's history, the legal battles, regulatory pressure, and relentless efforts by Health Canada to shut the company down despite mounting evidence and first-hand accounts of lives being transformed. This is a story about standing firm when institutions push back, about defending choice, and about the cost of challenging deeply entrenched systems. It's also a story of resilience, of a family and a company that refused to abandon the people who are finding hope through nutritional support. In part 2, Anthony and David recount the fight to protect access to Empower Plus, the emotional toll of years spent in courtrooms instead of labs, and why they believe these battles mattered far beyond their own organization. This is the chapter where Truehope was tested and where its mission was forged in fire. Welcome to the Truehope 30th anniversary special, part 2.
All right, welcome to part 2 of the history of Truehope, a rich 30 years of history with all sorts of twists, turns, battles. And so we're on to part 2. We discussed last time for 90 minutes about really the discovery, the groundbreaking discovery that was made based on the tragedy within our own home, the loss of your wife of 23 years-ish, and my mother. At that time, I was only 10 years old, so my mother of 10 years. And we talked about what led up to that. And it's a story that unfortunately way too many people can relate to. So if you have not yet seen part 1, go back and watch part 1. But you're in for a treat with part 2, because this is where it really shows the conviction of your dad in relation to whether or not you had your motive set right. If this was about business, or if this was about blessing people in the way that we ourselves have been blessed through this phenomenal discovery.
Yeah.
So there's now a bottle of the Empower Plus, because we really ended off the last portion of the podcast where you were talking about the necessity to now produce our own product, even though that was not the intention before. The quad program was working well, the Synergy quad program that you acquainted us all with the 4 different products: a colloidal mineral supplement, a calcium, magnesium, phosphorus supplement, a multivitamin, and grape seed extract, and how that was producing significant results in people's lives. Complicated, expensive, but worthy of being studied. But halfway throughout the study, everyone started to revert. Their symptoms began to return, but it wasn't just happening in the study, it was happening at home. And now you and David Hardy were on a journey to create your own all-in-one supplement that would ensure that people were getting the results that they were looking for. So we're about 1998 at this point in time in the history. What did that end up looking like to produce your own supplement? I know there was a sense of trepidation surrounding it, uneasiness, if you will.
Oh, there really was, but we absolutely recognized the need to have a guaranteed label claim, so that if a person bought the bottle and it said it has this much B1 in it, that's how much would be there.
Right.
And of course, we went in with the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, USP standards, to have that manufactured and produced produced properly. There was a lot of hiccups at the front end with everything. Finding a manufacturer that was reputable, that would do this for us, and do it the way that we wanted it done. Not that we believed that we had the full knowledge, but not to allow people to interfere in adversely affecting the outcome of the product. And that was a big thing. There was a lot of resistance. Why do you have this agent in there? Why don't you put this one in? There was a lot of suggestions that we had to work through. And sometimes manufacturers get pretty, I'll say, rammy, pretty pushy on their own person. Well, we've got a nutritionist here, and he's studied this for 15 years, and he's an expert, and we're going to go with him. I'm sorry. It has to abide in what's there. And what we discovered, David, if we modified, because one of the manufacturers did modify the product and it quit working.
Right.
And we had problems, and we went back there. No, this must be built to this standard.
Now, when you're saying standard, are you talking about, at this point in time, this is 1998, unique processes, manufacturing processes, very specific processes that were foreign to many manufacturers at that time because they were accustomed to producing vitamin mineral supplements in this particular way versus the way that you were advising them?
A certain amount, yes, because we had to develop a delivery system, and we realized that delivery is where it's at. That's what's going to take it into the cellular mass of the body.
So when you say delivery, you're referring to bioavailability, the body's ability to assimilate it, pull it into the bloodstream, and actually utilize it at the cellular level, crossing the blood-brain barrier, making sure that the nutrients are getting to where they need to go.
Exactly. And when we began, I believe it was 48 capsules that people would take per day.
Now, that sounds ludicrous.
That does.
So if somebody comes to you with bipolar, and you're saying, here, we've got a product for you now called Empower Plus. It's not even called Truehope Empower Plus on the label. It's just Empower Plus with this happy person, kind of doing a dance on there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's a large bottle. I mean, this is a tiny bottle. It's a large bottle that is really, and it has 448 capsules in it.
Yes.
And you're saying, hey, we've got a solution for you. Take 48 capsules per day.
And how do you want to eat that? Breakfast or lunch with gravy or not? Because it was a full meal deal. It really was. It was hard for people to choke down 48 double-aught. That's the size of the capsule.
The large capsules,
The large capsules. And to consume 48 was quite an undertaking.
And were people doing it?
Yes, and they were having a profound effect.
Okay, I was going to say, why were they doing it? But you just answered that. Because they're having a profound effect.
Exactly.
Okay, so you at this point in time, you have no marketing budget. There's no discussion surrounding marketing.
Exactly.
And is it growing?
Yes, the word of mouth. The phone kept on ringing. We weren't advertising. We didn't have to advertise. People would call their sister, Margaret, I'm on this product and my depression is gone. You should try this. And Margaret's got bad PMS and she's got some anxiety and some depressive issues. But she saw the same effect. And so it was growing on its own.
By virtue of the fact that it was actually radically transforming lives.
Absolutely. But people complained. Can't we do anything with the 48 capsules? That's huge.
Okay, so just to kind of fast track this now. So now we get to the year 2000. You've had the product for 2 years. You change the chelating agent, which for those that are listening, that's just when you take a mineral and you bind it to an organic molecule of sorts. And there's all sorts of variations of chelates, and not all chelates are the same. Some work really well, some don't work almost at all. And so you change the chelating agent, which was already working well. I mean, people are getting their lives back. And by doing so, same bottle, same ingredients, but now people are taking 32 capsules per day by the year 2000.
Yeah, the delivery system was better. Exactly. We learned piece by piece, line upon line, how to do this. That was a process of learning. And we had to be very careful that we didn't get caught up. Well, this is working. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. That kind of attitude.
Right.
We had to look beyond that. And we would set up focus groups and try this. And yes, look at that. Look at that. They're taking less and getting more.
Right. So by the year 2001, it's highlighting that even though a significant improvement had just been made, you went from 48 capsules per day down to 32 capsules per day for the therapeutic dose.
Yes.
But then 1 year later, you began to start the process of micronizing the minerals. And just by virtue of doing that, same formula, same ingredients, same balance, label reads the same, and yet now people are taking 18 capsules per day and getting the same results that they were on the 32 capsules per day, or if, 3 years previous, 48 capsules per day.
Exactly. And they weren't having the same side effects that were presented from their medications because we had to set up a titration system. We found, like, if you'll recall from part 1, going back there for a minute, Autumn was extremely over-medicated on day 3.
Right.
Do you recall that?
Yep.
Well, we learned piece by piece, line upon line, that the medications were actually potentiated by the nutrients. Why? Because the body improved. The chemistry within the body improved, and as they took medications, they had a more profound effect. And so we saw the side effects coming out.
Because now they're over-medicated. So let's put this in perspective really simply. So if somebody is producing adequate amounts of serotonin on their own, right? They have all of the coenzyme factors that facilitate the conversion of the amino acid tryptophan into 5-HTP or 5-hydroxytryptophan and then into serotonin. Yeah. They have all the ingredients necessary, which is just nutrition, by the way. And now they're already producing serotonin. If you were to give an individual like that a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which prevents the reuptake of serotonin, so it allows for more serotonin to be free, what's going to happen to that person who is already producing serotonin at an appropriate rate?
Well, they're going to have the medical effect that's stated that could happen. The side effect performa that's in the monograph for the drug. They all state it. I mean, you can end up in a position of psychosis, serotonin syndrome, which is very, very difficult. You can end
up dangerous for the brain. Yeah.
Absolutely dangerous. And there are many, many listed side effects on the monographs for the antidepressant SSRI class. And people could actually get into that. Giving a psychotropic psychiatric medication to someone who has balanced levels of neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, isn't going to make them into a superhuman.
Right.
It's going to maladjust them. They're going to be out of harmony.
Out of balance, out of homeostasis, and they're now in a state of dysfunction.
Totally.
Okay, so basically what you're finding then right off the bat is that, and we haven't talked about the ingredients, but you got 36 ingredients, 36 vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants found in the Empower Plus.
Yes.
And the product is still the same today.
And they all clock together. It works like a clock mechanism. Every little cog, the cofactors from the vitamins and the different minerals that are together in a bioavailable set. That's essential.
Yeah, so synergy. They're working synergistically, which is probably why, I'm assuming that's one of the reasons why you called it synergy?
That's why we called it, because it was a synergy.
Okay.
And it worked together. If we modified that, it quit working.
Right. And we've seen that time and time again with other individuals trying to produce Me Too products. They either don't understand the bioavailability aspect, so they get the ingredients right, but it's not working because they didn't understand the process behind the scenes to allow for the delivery of those nutrients.
Yes.
Or you have people that take it and then they modify it and it just doesn't seem to work. Or it can actually create disastrous effects by throwing the balances out.
Or taking additional minerals outside of the scope of the 36 nutrients.
Right, offsetting
Can
balance.
imbalance. Exactly. Okay. And we learned that through trial and error. And over a course of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of individuals.
Right.
In our database, there's over 500,000 people who are no longer taking medications.
So let's get to the whole database thing here, because you were just talking about the effect that medications were having, where we're starting to see the normalization of production of neurotransmitters, also hormones as well, because hormones and neurotransmitters are in essence the same thing. They're messenger molecules in the body, and it requires nutrition to produce them, to incite the enzyme reactions to facilitate either the conversion of, in steroidal hormones, cholesterol into those hormones, or non-steroidal hormones. The precursor, the beginning point, is an amino acid as well as neurotransmitters. So,
well, when we looked at the University of Kyoto's genome work, it was fantastic.
Right,
what they did.
The KEGG, which
KEGG program,
ironically started in 1996, the same year that you made this discovery. So the science hadn't caught up yet with what you had discovered through an answer to your prayers.
But what did they show? They showed that the amino acids, minerals, and vitamins were precursors to the different junctions and the ultimate creation within this factory, within this wonderful mechanism that God has given us. It has the ability to create its own neurochemistry. We don't eat serotonin, we make it.
Right.
And citing their information when they did all the brain mapping and the metabolic charting, showing the metabolic factors that create things like melatonin, serotonin, I got melatonin already, dopamine, serotonin. There are individual precursors that produce it. For instance, if you're going to generate, and you want to, sufficient serotonin that drives your bowel, it absolutely does. There's more serotonin in the bowel than there is in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to produce that, pyridoxal phosphate, vitamin B, and iron are essential. If you're missing those, or if you can't uptake those, or if they're not found in your diet, if you're on a junk food diet that's devoid of any mineral density and it's all calories and fats, you're not going to produce the proper neurochemistry, hormone set, enzymes, all that structure that has been designed and functioning under DNA.
Right. Which is exactly what we'd anticipate to see today, a rise in mental illness and other illnesses related to nutrient deficiencies, because today our food, even if you're looking at fresh foods, when they do the analysis, you're looking at about 1/5 of the amount of mineral content in the foods today as what there was with your parents or my great-grandparents, right, type of thing, or my grandparents. And so we see...
Go back to 1992, the WHO Summit, the World Summit.
Yep.
Okay, what did they find? That's a section of the United Nations, and they did good work. They showed that North American topsoils were more degenerate, if you want to put it that way, or deficient in mineral than what China was.
Yeah.
Why China? China's been there for, 5,000 years? We don't know. And we've only been here a couple or 300 years upon this continent.
With our agricultural practices,
Well,
exactly.
China took all of their honey buckets, all of their human waste, put it out on the land.
Mm-hmm.
And within that human waste, we're excreting a large amount of mineral from our body that's essential.
Mm-hmm.
It's essential to the production of all of these wonderful chemicals that make us emote and have cognitive function.
Yeah. Now, I know we're digressing from the history here, but this is, I think, very valuable for the audience. There's also, in relation to what we're talking about here, Anne-Marie Meyer published, I believe it was 1998, British Food Journal, published an analysis that her and her team had done, not on soil sample studies, which she was accustomed to doing, but they took 20 common fruits and vegetables and analyzed the levels of minerals found in them versus what they were in 1948-ish, so a 50-year span. And what they found is that many of the minerals were devoid by over 80%. And what her and her team concluded, and the science supports it, is that it was due to the inception or the beginning of the use of synthetic herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and synthetic fertilizers as well. And what it was doing to the microbiome in the soil, preventing what little mineral was in there, because she determined with her studies that there was basically a 50% reduction in the mineral content in the soils.
Yes.
But what she found is that it was even worse when it translated into the food because of the sprays they were using. It was preventing the uptake of what little mineral was in the soil into that food. So now we see the foundation as to why we're walking around in dysfunction, because we don't have the vitamins and minerals and amino acids and all that necessary to facilitate the production of things like hormones and neurotransmitters, which are there to tell your body what it should be doing, which means communication breaks down. We know what happens in a business if communication breaks down. We know what happens in a family if communication breaks down. It becomes dysfunctional. Same thing internally in the body. Communication breaks down, you end up in dysfunction, which is oftentimes translates to a diagnosable disease.
Yeah. And so what really the universities, we'll get into the university studies in a little bit here, but unerringly they found that as they did the research and applied nutrients to people, their mental aberrations disappeared. Once again, I hate the term mental illness, but mental illness is equal to nutritional deficiency. And that's the bottom line here.
Yeah.
This body was designed to function in light of participating by eating and uptaking nutrients. They're essential to our everyday life.
And just to further, let's qualify that real quick, because so in 1996, your prayers have been answered. Joe gets better. Autumn gets better. Phone calls start to come in. You never had a mindset to make this into a business, but it just naturally took off with people demanding it, saying, how do we get better like Joe got better, like Autumn got better?
Well, we started getting phone calls from people in Pennsylvania. Well, my cousin that lives up in southern Alberta said, I got to take this. How do I get it? Well, that presented a major dilemma.
Yeah.
We've got to create a corporation, and we have to be able to produce product that's guaranteed in its analysis so it doesn't fail the people, fail the mission. And so we had all of this huge conundrum. How do we do this? And coming forth out of that sprang Truehope.
And so 1996 is the beginnings of it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the Kyoto
University of Kyoto, yeah.
Yeah, so what happens in 1996 is that you end up with this project called the KEG project, which is what you're referring to, and that's the Kyoto Encyclopedia of Genes and Genomes. And they map it out, and so I think it's valuable for the audience to understand exactly what's taking place to why vitamins and minerals would have this effect. So what they find, let's just go down two pathways real quick.
Please.
We all understand serotonin and dopamine, right? Or at least to a certain degree. We understand what they are, and that obviously they have some effect in our mood, how we feel, and whether or not we are motivated, right? Without dopamine, motivation goes down the tube. And so let's just take a look at those pathways really quickly here, because there's 7 specific nutrients in each one of those pathways that will lead to the production of serotonin and the production of dopamine, and they actually mirror each other. So if somebody's taking a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, they're only affecting one pathway, but yet the same factors are present in the other pathway that they're not addressing, which means you're not going to be producing dopamine if you weren't producing serotonin. So serotonin starts off with tryptophan. You end up with 5 nutrients inciting the tryptophan hydroxylase enzyme. This can be found in the KEG research, by the way. So those 5 nutrients necessary, and they're called coenzyme factors to facilitate the enzyme working, is iron, methylfolate, which in and of itself requires a host of nutrients as well to produce methylfolate, because you don't consume it, you produce it unless you're eating meat from an animal that already produced it itself using the nutrients necessary to do so.
You're making it.
Right. So you're supposed to make it at an appropriate rate. So overmethylation is a real issue, and that's why we don't have methylation in the product. We facilitate methylation, right? And that's a whole other discussion.
Sure
and we've
it
done videos on that in the past. And so you can find those as well, that there's a reason why we're not putting methylation into the product, and very good reason. As you say, it's better to make it.
You're better off to make it than to take it. That's a little truism that we have within Truehope. Your body knows what to do if you give it the proper building blocks of life, which are amino acids and vitamins and minerals.
Omega-3 or omega fatty acids.
Essential fatty acids.
Exactly. So those four.
If we have those four subgroups and they're in the proper proportion, I shouldn't say that. Because the body will sort that out, more or less. You don't have to hit it exactly on the button. But in the proper levels, then you're going to be able to function and produce what your body needs.
Exactly.
All these things, asthma has been proven to be a calcium magnesium deficiency. What? How can you say that? Well, just go into respiratory arrest, go into the hospital having a full-blown respiratory attack caused by asthma. What are they going to inject you with? Calcium and magnesium. They're actually going to mainline that, and within 2 minutes, your bronchi have relaxed and are opened, and you're now breathing again. These things are essential to every aspect of life.
And we've actually seen asthma corrected with Empower Plus. Not saying that that's the first go-to, but we've seen it.
As a comorbidity, we've got within our database thousands of cases of asthma that have been corrected. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. What's the underlying or the mainline problem there? It's a lack of serotonin production. So we load the proper nutrients. The body sorts it out. It's not a drug. It's not like taking an aspirin. And the body sorts it out and produces serotonin, dopamine, all of these wonderful agents, and the body is able to function. It needs to have that recipe within it.
Perfect. So we were at 2 nutrients or coenzyme factors. We are at 3 nutrients because we started off with tryptophan, which is an essential amino acid for the production of serotonin. Then you have iron methylfolate, and then vitamin C, D, and B3. So now you have 6 nutrients getting to the point of producing 5-HTP. And then you brought up the pyridoxine 5-phosphate, which is activated B6, right? Which now that's another thing as well. What activated it? Well, that's another enzyme reaction that required nutrients. But you have activated B6 present. Now you've got your 7th nutrient, and now you have serotonin. That's the simple recipe. That's what the KEGG project, Kyoto Encyclopedia of Genes and Genomes, identified. Now, when you take a look at dopamine, it's the same thing, other than the fact that it starts off with tyrosine instead of tryptophan, but requires the same first 5 nutrients to convert it to L-DOPA, and then it requires P5P or pyridoxine 5-phosphate to convert it to dopamine. So, this is valuable for the audience because now they get maybe a snippet of the fact that it's just 7 nutrients necessary to get from point A to point B, which is the production of serotonin. But now serotonin also converts into melatonin, which requires a few more nutrients as well.
The hormone of sleep.
Right, exactly.
I can't sleep. Well, take a look at your levels of serotonin. It'll tell you the story.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, what you've identified here, and I'm glad that you brought up all those, the KEGG protocol or the genome study identified junction points in order to get to the production, well, let's say serotonin. And there's nutrients involved in all those junction points. What happens if you pull one nutrient out?
Boom. Stop.
It fails. What happens if you can't uptake iron very well? What happens if if the food that you're consuming is very low in iron? Well, you're not going to produce the serotonin that you need.
Yep.
And you're going to be growling at your dog.
What happens if you live in a northern country where your shadow is longer than your height is? Because as soon as we're there, there's inadequate levels of UVB radiation exposure from the sun to convert it's 7-dehydrocholesterol within your skin into cholecalciferol, which is
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D3, exactly. So if you don't have the vitamin D3, you also won't produce dopamine, you won't produce serotonin, you won't produce a host of neurotransmitters and hormones in the body. And so if you're living in northern country, that's why depression is so rampant in the winter months within the northern countries.
Now, you brought this up, and this is amazing because it demonstrates the miracle. You see, I didn't know anything about nutrition. My friend David Hardy was an animal feed specialist. He didn't know anything about nutrition. This thing came together perfectly. Had one item been missing or insufficient values, we wouldn't have the success that we have in helping people to change their lives.
Right.
You see, it's absolutely miraculous when you boil the whole thing down. The simplicity of the way that God designed this thing to work and the harmony of all these nutrients are absolutely essential to the dialogue of that dark statement, mental illness.
So now it's correcting mental illness, and people are coming to you on medications, and they're not necessarily calling you True Hope; they're calling you their last hope, right? Because they've exhausted everything else.
We've heard that. About a month ago, 2 months ago, I had a fellow call me from southern British Columbia, Canada, and he said, "I'm done. I'm locked up in my basement. I'm going to take my life. I've heard a little bit about what you're doing. The lady at the store said, take this, it'll help me. Well, I've got hold of you. Thank you for your time, but is this a scam? No, it's not a scam. In fact, I'll send you 4 bottles, and then this is what you do, and you take it. Well, I've been locked up for the last 3 months. My wife has left me. My kids are gone. I have nobody, and I have nothing, and I'm unemployed. I'm a welder." I said, wow, man, that doesn't sound good, but let's work on this. 2 weeks later, he was out welding again, generating funds to put food on his table, and he's working with his family members, and he's doing wonderfully well. That's the history of True Hope.
Mm-hmm.
True Hope. Why would you call it such a wacky name? Because, my friends, there only is one true hope in this life, and his name is Jesus Christ. We were blessed by God to find this. An unknowledgeable power engineer and a feed guy that put feed together and sold feed put this thing together, and it works, and it's never really been altered over the past 30 years. You have to ask yourself the question about divine intervention in sorry, it kind of chokes me up, this discussion. We have to ask ourselves about the divine intervention that we find in each and every one of our lives. And I'm speaking with you. It's amazing when you think of the help and the assistance that we've all received as God's creation.
You know, it would sound like a very bold claim or an unbelievable story, really, if it wasn't for the fact that there's now 35 medical journal publications on this, which I don't want to get into that yet. Let's keep this going sequentially here.
I'm going to correct you, 37 now.
Oh, my apologies, because now, well, yes.
No, it's okay, because it's growing all the time. These universities, we don't pay them. We haven't paid them 5 cents.
Exactly.
We gave them product, and we made up a placebo so they could do double-blind randomized studies.
Yeah.
And they're undertaking to do this. We have no influence on the research at all.
Yeah.
But it's all showing a wondrous thing.
It's validating the claim that you're making, which makes it even more unbelievable that this would just come about through the unlikely means that it wasn't through academia, it wasn't in a laboratory setting, it wasn't with scientists, it wasn't with nutritionists, it wasn't with anybody that you would guess would be part of a discovery like this.
Yeah, for sure.
It was with a broken father, a humble man seeking to save his family, and the answer came through prayer.
And I don't claim to be humble. I promise you, I was humbled.
You were humbled.
Because of the terrifying experience that I went through as a father who loved my wife and loved my children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful thing that the science actually validates the unbelievable discovery.
Yes.
And sorry, 35 medical journal publications in specific to this variation of the product. And so I apologize. But yeah, 37,
you don't
because
have
there's
to
variations.
apologize. It's good. And we're going to continue to see more and more research. 16 universities are involved right now in 4 different countries. And at that time, when we had 34 studies, there was 16 different mental, I call them aberrations that they studied.
Different diagnoses.
Yeah, whether it's anxiety, OCD,
ADHD, depression, psychosis. Yeah.
autism. They even found some major answers there.
Yeah, that was a great study out of the University of Saskatchewan with Louis Meldrona. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just beautiful things. So let's get there real quick.
Okay,
So-
let's do that.
So sorry, the audience, we've fragmented a bit here. So you have to develop a support system because people are getting their brains back, for lack of better terms.
Yes.
The neurochemistry is being produced. The medication has no role being there. So if they continue on, they now are starting to see more side effects from it, and they have to withdraw off of it before they go into a major state of over-medication, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so now you're realizing, hey, wait a minute. We can't just sell them a product and say, good luck.
Let us know how it goes.
You're now beholden to supply them the information necessary, to provide them the guidance necessary to help them come off of these medications. And there's nobody doing that at that point in time. The doctors aren't doing it. They're learning how to put their clients or their patients onto medications, but nobody is helping people in droves to come off medications. And now you've got thousands of people knocking on your door saying, we're on medications, they're not working, you're our last hope, what can you offer us? What happens?
Well, hence comes forth the database because, and we have a very secure database. It was secured by a company that did one of the major banks in Canada here to protect the data, to keep it safe, confidential information. But we have a number of counselors. Some of them suffered with mental conditions before, and they feel indebted, and they wanted to work and help people to go through what they've been through and get out of it in that sense. So there was a database created, a very protected database, and we would monitor their symptoms. We would watch for certain data to come forward, and it's pretty well all the same. You could lay thousands of charts on top of one another, and you see the lines.
The patterns are there.
The patterns are there. And so we developed a strategy on how to safely assist them to work with their doctor or not. We took a lot of people whose doctors wouldn't assist and developed that strategy on how to safely get off the medications. We always say to people, you don't just crash and throw your medications and stop them abruptly. We work on a titration process, depending upon which medication it is. If it's an addictive one like the benzodiazepines, things like Valium, diazepam, lorazepam, clonazepam, we have a separate system to assist people in working through that because they may have some withdrawal symptoms, but we minimize that because we go out so far with them. And we don't charge them for this.
Mm-hmm.
There's no cost for someone to come to us. They buy the product from us. It's not that highly priced, of course. We have to keep the thing going. We have to hire these counselors. But the amazing thing about it is they get the service that they need. Do they need to call in every day? Well, if you do, you do. If you feel like you need to call in every week, that's fine. But we assist people in walking through this thing. And like I say, I'm going to say it's well over 500,000 people who we've assisted in removing their medications. And we're going to talk in a minute about how we won the right to do that in the Canadian courts. We'll bring that up in a minute. But what's really intriguing about this whole process is that it's very, very simple, extremely simple. And we're all able to overcome this thing in our life and take control over your own health. That's the key. You have to take ownership over your health. It doesn't belong to the doctor. It doesn't belong to the counselors. It's yours. And we can help you walk through this in a very specific, protected way.
So what you're really discussing there is the fact that you're empowering people, which I assume there's a bit of a wordplay here with the name Empower Plus. Not only does it stand for Essential Mineral Power Plus, but also the name itself as a whole is Empower Plus, because the goal is to empower people to ultimately take control of their own health, their own well-being, their own matters in life, that they are in control, that they get to choose what they want to do in life without being debilitated by the effects of mental illness.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Well, there have been some enemies, and that's okay.
Well, let's get to that in a second here.
Okay.
Let's actually get right there. So the first study is shut down because the Synergy Quad program, 4 different products that were being used, one of them is a variable, but the results initially were really good.
They were.
So now the Empower Plus is created. At this point in time, it's a big bottle, 48 capsules per day.
Yep.
But you end up approaching Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, who had already had some workings with you, even though initially she didn't want to. She was highly skeptical, which was a beautiful part of the story. But the evidence highlighted that there was something to be looked at. And she looked at it and said, okay, let's do something here. Right? And the story is much more comprehensive than that.
It is. It actually began with Dr. Brian Kolb. He's a very well-established neuroscientist at the University of Lethbridge
Canadian Centre for Behavioral Neuroscience.
There you go.
Now, they built that for him, and part of the reason is that he discovered brain cell regeneration could happen, ironically, using 22 vitamins and minerals.
Empower Plus.
Well, then the follow-up study with Empower Plus, which showed a full recovery of brain matter, but also a beyond full recovery of cognition after they had basically done a lobotomy. They removed a portion of the frontal lobes of the brains, or they punched holes in the parietal lobes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And David, my partner at that time, and I went to Brian Kolb. I actually started with Brian Kolb years before. When I lost my wife to a suicide and I was so confused, how did this happen? And a friend that I was working with at the hospital said, you go see Dr. Brian Kolb. I took some courses from him, University of Lethbridge, so I did. And he had a defined set of thinking on bipolar. He had written the book Fundamentals of Human Neuropsychology. It's used at the base level in universities all over the world.
It's like a Bible, and I think they've done like 7-8 editions or something now.
Oh, yeah. Him and Dr. Ian Wishaw. And so I spent some time, and he gave me a copy of the book. He said, you read this, and then you come back and see me. And I did. And it wasn't that many years afterwards that I and David Hardy approached him to talk to him. And he thought we were crazy. You can't resolve these things. I wrote the book on it. And Brian's a good, humble man. He listened to us. And he thought, well, prove it. And I said, well, what would happen if we gathered a number of ADHD children with their moms? We'll work with their moms because they're the caregiver. Dads are there, but moms are great, right? And so we'll approach them and we'll get 16 lined up. And we can give them the nutrients. Well, and I'll give you this form. He had a baseline, and it showed symptoms every week. And we gave them the forms. We did not collect the forms. He was very careful. He said, you're not going to touch it.
So chain of command, he's protecting it.
Yeah, he's protecting the data. He said, you do not receive those forms. They're sent directly to me. Here's my address. In fact, we'll print out all these envelopes. They put them in. They send them to me. And I want to know their names, the name of the child, how old, and their phone number. And I'm going to contact them. So he phoned us up. He said, Tony, I've set up appointments for next week with these 16 moms. I want to interview them, but I would like you to be there, but you can't chime in. Bring David, but you stay out of the conversation. You can listen. And he came out of there shocked. He said, "What? Look at the data. Look at these moms who are saying their kids aren't aberrant. They're now very judicious in their thinking. They're able to apply themselves." He even phoned a number of the school teachers to talk to the school teachers. He got the whole scoop. And then he said to us, "I'm sorry, I can't help you."
So now at this point in time, Dr. Bonnie Kaplan had already rejected you. Is that correct?
She had rejected us as snake oil salesmen. I said, "We're not even selling anything, Dr. Kaplan." But Brian called her because he said, "I specialize in doing rat research on rats, not humans, and I'm not qualified that. But Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, extremely well published, University of Calgary, fantastic lady, I'm going to phone her." And she decided that she would talk to us. And we took my daughter, Autumn, with us with her medical records. And she went through this. And she said, "I don't believe it. I don't believe it because there's so many nutrients out there. Why are we not seeing people being healed, from this thing? Where's the genesis of this thing? How could it be?" And so she decided we provided her some product, and we just said, "Play. You give it to people." And she got nothing but good reports. And then she took the risk, and I say risk, I mean risk, of actually getting involved in this thing, not for monetary processes at all. She was very scrupulous. "You're never giving me anything other than some free product. That's customary."
As in, she wouldn't even let you buy her a cup of coffee.
No, I couldn't even buy her a cup of coffee or a lunch. No, I'm paying my own. And she's a wonderful lady, and she has great ethical standards. Well, she started to do the work.
So now we're into the year 2000, and she studies the product. In October of 2000, the results are so incredible that she publishes the preliminary results, and Lloyd Robinson, right? Or Robertson? Robertson. Lloyd Robertson, the head anchor.
CTV, National News.
Yeah. And it debuts in October of 2000.
Yeah.
Now, at this point in time, you were operating with a mindset that we need to get this into the hands of doctors.
Oh, absolutely. This needs to be flooded. This is a major breakthrough. How can you heal people that are on the incurable list, right?
So now, in essence, the vision is get this into the hands of doctors, get it so it's prescribed, get it so it's readily available and accessible. It's accessible, available, financially affordable because socialized medicine that has become part of the formulary across all of the different provinces, that when somebody goes to their doctor and they say, "I'm depressed," well, before we get you onto a medication that has all sorts of side effects, why don't we try this first? It's just nutrition that you need on a daily basis anyways. Try it out. The results are fantastic.
First resort, right?
Exactly. And then if that doesn't work, then we'll examine, right? But for the vast majority of people, it's working. So that's what you're moving forward with, is that mindset.
Exactly.
Now, this goes on to national news. How are you feeling at that point in time when you see it all of a sudden it's on national news and you're talking on there and David Hardy is on there talking about the pigs and the genesis of it, the story, and it's now getting out there mainstream. How are you feeling in that moment on that evening of October 2000?
I want to let you know that I was absolutely elated. Wow, what a godsend. This is absolutely amazing. It's getting the world by the tail. Here we go. Wondrous.
So now you're thinking that, hey, this vision of getting into the hands of doctors, it going mainstream, families all across Canada being blessed. And obviously, if it's happening in Canada, it's going to happen in the UK, it's going to happen in New Zealand and Australia, all the Commonwealth nations. It's going to happen in the US, and it's going to spread like wildfire, where it becomes an integrated part of Western medicine.
Exactly.
Right? What happens the next day after that news aired?
Well, it was interesting. The morning after, I was in my little office in the house that we lived in, and my phone rang. "Hello? Is this Anthony Stephan?" "Yes, it is." "This is so-and-so from Health Canada." Who gave you the authority to speak on national news? What? I didn't think I needed to have authority. Well, you do. And you're going to take this down and you're going to make this whole thing go away. Do you understand? Well, I can't. My children need this for their life. We're not talking about this. You're going to make this thing go away. Do you understand? Click.
All right. So now, contravention of Section 3132 of the Food and Drugs Act.
Yes.
Okay. They're telling you that in order to help somebody with bipolar disorder, you need a drug identification number for a multivitamin.
Yes. And we got 3 cease and desist orders from Health Canada.
Okay, so now they're telling you, shut it down.
Yeah,
you
go
need a
away.
DIN number. Are they going to give you the DIN number?
No, not at all.
Did you attempt to get the DIN number?
We worked fast and furiously to do the best that we could to accommodate them and to align ourselves with the legislation. No question.
Okay, so now at this point in time, excitement is mounting around the research, right?
Yep.
There's a double-blind placebo-controlled trial that's about to take place that the Alberta government has funded $544,000 towards.
Yes.
What happens to that study?
It got snuffed.
By who?
Health Canada.
So they came in and told you that you're in contravention of Section 3132 of the Food and Drugs Act. You need a drug identification number
Yes.
for a multivitamin because it's working with people with bipolar disorder,
And
and that you can't have the research.
that's right. In fact, it was actually pointed more at Dr. Bonnie J. Kaplan at the University of Calgary because they came in and shut the trial down and destroyed. There was a lot of funding, like you're talking about, the $544,000 that came from the Alberta government, Alberta Science and Research Authority, a legitimate department, a legitimate grant. You're talking about that, and you're talking about the other funds that were gathered, not by ourselves, because we didn't put money into it.
Right.
That was not acceptable. That's a conflict of interest.
Well, and did you have money to put into it if you even
No,
wanted to?
we were living hoof to mouth at that point.
At that point in time, yeah, because at that point in time, it's still pretty small.
Yeah.
It's growing, but it's still small. And then once it gets to a point that you would have been able to afford to fund it, what were you funding for the next couple of years from 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, and up to 2005? What were you funding at that point in time where most people would have been generating a marketing budget? What were you spending the excess funds on?
Well, we had a wellness operation where people would come to us, and we realized very quickly that sadly when people struggle with these mental conditions, they become dysfunctional. That's not their fault. But they're also financially dysfunctioned, and that they need help because they can't afford to buy the products. So we started taking out of general revenue, and we set up this fund to assist those people so they could get the product to help themselves with, or family members.
You know, I didn't even take that part into consideration, the philanthropic arm of Truehope, and that was where a lot of the excess funds would be diverted, which is fantastic. So thank you for getting. So I'm actually going to build up to where
You do that.
Somebody else will or everyone else will pick up, but let's actually keep it going sequentially. So just for the audience, you'll find out where the rest of the money had to go during those particular crucial years. But we'll get there in a few minutes here as we build up to it. Okay, so Health Canada and yourself and David Hardy now have a relationship. You're receiving cease and desist orders. At one point in time, do they ever give you a plan of action or a recommendation saying what you should be doing if you want to continue doing this?
Sure they did. David and I wanted to work this thing through very quickly, and we traveled out to their head Western regional office in Burnaby, BC, and attempted to visit with them. And they basically said, get out of Dodge.
As in?
You're not going to market this in Canada. You go down to the U.S. and you can operate out of there, but you're not operating here, and you're not putting that. We're going to disallow this product absolutely.
And that's an option that you were actually considering at one point in time. At this point in time, I think I'm in my grade 11th or beginning of grade 12th year, and we're talking about moving to Alpine, Utah.
Yeah, that's right.
And it looked like it was going to happen.
Exactly.
But something happened. You decided not to.
Yes.
Why?
Because we had to stay and make a stand here. It was essential for the people. They had to have the right under the Constitution of Canada, under the section that provides for life, liberty, and security of the person. And so we decided to make a stand on this thing.
Amazing. Okay. So now cease and desist orders are coming. During this time, let's inject this in here, even though it's going to it'll sideline the flow just briefly. But
Go ahead.
would anything particular happen in September of 2002 that was groundbreaking for the forward movement of Truehope in relation to the discovery?
Oh, well, we had a momentous occasion with the publication of a documentary.
And who produced that documentary?
Discover Health.
Discovery Health Channel.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how many people are familiar with Discovery Health Channel today, but anybody that's my age or older knows that was the channel to watch if you wanted to know about stuff that was science related.
It was the go-to, no question.
All right, so they produce a full-length documentary called Impossible Cures, and it's published in September of 2002. How far and broad did that go?
Oh, it went around the world. Yeah, I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was published, put out there in 67 different languages. That's what I believe.
Okay, I don't recall it being that many languages. I remember it was over 50 countries that they pushed it into, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And that it was translated. I can't remember how many languages. Maybe it was, but I thought it was a lesser number. At one point in time, I would have been able to ring it off. But so it went far and wide.
Oh, yeah, that had a profound impact upon the number of people that were taking the product worldwide.
And so that's how we get to the point
Well,
where...
we ended up opening up into 104 different countries outside of Canada and the U.S. proper.
Right, and largely as a result of that documentary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolute blessing, right?
Yep.
So now we have this tug of war taking place. You've got Health Canada saying go away. You're getting cease and desist orders, but yet you've got news publications, and it wasn't just CTV National News, that in the following year, other news corps,
hundreds,
like Global and A Channel, and then it just continued to build, and there was magazine publications.
There was hundreds and hundreds of newspaper articles. Shirley Johnson, I'm just throwing that out, living in a small town, would go into their publishing office, like this little Herald, and say, look, I want to give you a story. My life has been altered. And so all these publications were popping up all over America and Canada. Yeah.
And so now this tug of war is really getting heated because it's not just a one-sided battle where Health Canada is saying, go away, we're going to shut down the studies. And we did shut down the studies. We're going to try to basically, cut you off at every point. Yep. But now you have media publications coming out and highlighting the credibility of this, and people are becoming aware of it. So now we get to 2003. So September 2002, documentary comes out, and it's just starting to build momentum. Early 2003 rolls around. What happens?
The big raid.
The big raid.
The guns drawn raid with the RCMP. I believe there was 8 officers there on that. And 9 Health Canada agents coming in about 8 o'clock in the morning and laying siege to our Truehope Support Center located in Raymond, Alberta.
And at that point in time, they had already cut off the product at the border.
Yes, absolutely.
Putting 3,000 Canadians...
There was an embargo. You couldn't get it. And people were put in a terrifying situation. People whose lives have been altered and changed for the good, all of a sudden now we're begging to have the product.
And they're begging for their lives.
Oh, they are. Crying on the phone. Oh, yeah.
So the support center goes from supporting people coming off medications to now supporting them in a time of crisis.
Absolute
More
crisis.
of a counseling service than anything at that point in time.
Some people started to actually haul the product across the border, if you want to put the word illegally.
Smuggling rings?
Smuggling. The Mohawk natives, the Kanasawaki, started hauling product into eastern Canada. We didn't incite this. It happened. people were doing this to save their loved ones. They didn't have a choice. It was like somebody cut off the food supply to your house and your children are starving. It had the same effect.
You
Absolutely.
do everything within your power.
Yeah, terrifying.
To acquire it. And people were doing that.
Health Canada set up a crisis line. They created a crisis.
Yeah.
And all they would do is pass people over to these counselors. You can't have this project, this dangerous product anymore. Dangerous? There was no evidence to say that vitamins and minerals were dangerous.
No, but now this is where it gets. This is what people need to realize. So what Health Canada was saying at that point in time was, there's no evidence to say it's safe.
That's right.
But there's no evidence to say it's unsafe. And by virtue of the fact that there's 3,000 Canadians taking it, would that not constitute evidence that it's safe? Nobody's had any issues with it.
They weren't prepared to look at the truth. That was not what it was about. It was about getting this thing to go away and realizing that the company, Truehope, was resisting. Well, they had to resist. We had to do that to protect the people that we love and honor them with this product. This is a gift. It's an absolute gift. So they did everything unscrupulously. They got into they actually took the database, they seized it, they phoned all the people that were on. Amazing. Don't take this product. And we lost, I'm going to estimate, probably 300 to 350 people out of our database.
Which is over 10% of the people that were taking it in total within Canada.
Well, at that time, there was probably 5,000 people. But we lost 300 to 350 people. They disappeared.
And we're aware that numerous of them did suicide.
Yeah, there's no question.
And that Health Canada was warned that those suicides were going to happen by Ron Lejeunesse, the head of the Alberta chapter of the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Exactly. They were well apprised of what they were doing, and they did it in a malicious way.
And that evidence would actually come out in court.
Yes.
So what happens in early 2004 after Health Canada finally relinquishes, after they get enough black eyes in the media and everything, other than CBC. CBC was the only media that refused to report on what Health Canada was doing in a negative way.
Well, they're government owned.
Exactly. Crown organization, right? And so government propaganda being pushed through CBC, they're off in their own world, generating their own strange media. Meanwhile, all the other news corps are highlighting what Health Canada is doing in a negative light.
Yeah.
So Health Canada finally relinquishes in late 2003, and the product starts flowing across the border again. What happens in early 2004?
Well, we ended up being charged
Criminally
for what we were doing, selling an illegal, dangerous drug.
So let me get this straight. You've just helped restore and even save the lives of many. Okay, so you've got over 3,000 Canadians taking it.
Yeah.
And all of them have been impacted in a significant way, and many of them could claim that you saved their lives. Not you, but that the answer to prayer that you have been moving forward with has saved their lives.
Exactly.
And now you're charged criminally.
Well, and at that time, we did have more people because there were U.S. citizens involved in taking the product. But in our database, we showed over 15,000 medical practitioners / psychiatrists. We're not talking about homeopaths, that's fine.
Right.
We're talking about absolute physicians here. But there was over 15,000 in the database, and Health Canada ignored all that. We had hundreds and hundreds of letters from medical practitioners. They ignored that.
Yep.
They had an agenda. This was imposing itself upon the pharmaceutical industry. It had to go, and go quickly.
So the argument could be laid that, wait a minute, the science isn't there. Health Canada is working in the interests of the people. But in reality, when you look at it, Health Canada was suppressing the science, and they were ignoring the medical experts that were attesting to the fact that this was having this effect, and then coming out with the claim that there's no evidence to support that it's safe. But yet any studies that would have identified that it was safe, they were already shutting down.
Yes, exactly.
So they were trying to create a narrative.
That's what they did.
And so they were cutting us off at every single point, in essence, cutting you off from being able to move forward with this. Okay, so You're charged criminally, you and David Hardy, correct?
Yes.
Then what happens? We get to 2005, 2006. 2006, I think, is March 2006 is when...
I think 2006 it came into the courts.
Okay.
And, of course, we pled not guilty. What's ridiculous about it is it's only a $350 fine on the books at that time. And we couldn't leave it alone.
So how much was it costing you before you even got into court?
Oh,
You could have paid $350 and said, guilty, $350, good, get out from underneath it. Or what did it cost you just to get up to the point that you were almost walking into the courtroom? What had you already invested?
$341,000. They drove us to the point of just basically a few nights before the trial would begin. They said, okay, we're going to make an offer to you. We're going to go away with this thing, but you're going to pay the $350 fine and just plead guilty, and we'll call it square. And sadly, I had quite a debate with my partner. I said, no, because if you do that, they'll be back again the next week. Mm-hmm. And they'll drive us into bankruptcy and do their level best to destroy this.
So you're when you say bankruptcy, and this is to circle back to where were the funds going once it started to actually grow?
$341,000 just to prepare for court.
Right.
It was going to end up being a 3-week-long court case, a long course. There's no question. But, a lot of funds were lost.
Now, there was discussion that you had caught wind of that they were going to drop the charges.
Yeah, in fact, our lawyer contacted us and said, here's the options they presented. And I thought that's not the way to go, because I'd watched what they'd done to other companies. They drove a lot of American companies out of Canada. They were doing everything. They had an anti-nutrient agenda, and we were just on the list, but we were one of the big ones that they wanted gone because we actually showed therapeutic action.
Right. And by this point in time, you'd already helped over 3,000 Canadians come off of psychiatric medications.
Sure.
That's big profit.
Well,
those were lifetime clients. You just removed those clients from a whole lifetime of medications.
Sure, and it was growing. It was growing on a daily basis. It had its own wings, in a sense.
Because there's still no marketing at this point in time.
No.
There's just news coverage. There's
no,
a Discovery
there's
documentary.
no advertising.
Right. And,
No.
and that's not even on the radar. The talk about marketing in the company is non-existent.
No, it still isn't. It's still non-existent.
Well, it's not non-existent. That's where I am. But okay,
in small ways.
But we operate differently from the international division. But yeah,
that's right.
Okay, so what ended up happening when they were going to just drop the charges? Because I have a specific recollection.
Oh yes, in fact, what I did, I said to my partner, we need to go to court. We need to make this thing public. They need to get their evidence on the table. We need a chance to speak publicly, and the court is the place to do it. So I made sure that these calls were all protected and recorded, and I phoned 3 of the health...
No, just
go ahead.
Let me jump in.
Please.
So I show up to work one lovely morning, and I remember you coming in, and you've got a fire going on within you. And you called your boys, me, and a couple of my brothers, into the conference room where there is a central television or telephone, speaker telephone. I mean, this is back in 2005 or 2006, early 2006 or late 2005. And so we've got, good technology back then, good phone system right on the table, conference room table. You pull us boys in there and you say, join me, right? And then you commenced on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I contacted 3 of the Health Canada agents. I didn't threaten them.
No, it wasn't a threat, but it was...
I just said, you better be prepared, because if you lose, there's going to be lawsuits against you, personally.
Well, okay. So here's my recollection as well.
Please.
So remember now...
this is, 20 years ago?
This is over 20 years ago now.
That's over 20 years ago.
So,
go ahead.
So now... They're talking about dropping the charges. Here's my recollection of it, and I might botch this, is that you phone them and with a little bit of cheekiness, and you said, "Hey, we understand that Health Canada's going to drop the charges. And this is just fantastic news because now we're going to sue you for what you've done against the Canadian people.
Yes. Yeah, that's the way it rolled out.
And so then what happens with them dropping the charges?
Well, instantly they phoned the Crown, the federal Crown, phoned our lawyer, Sean Buckley, a constitutional lawyer, and said, we're on. We're not dropping these charges at all.
So in essence, you instigated them to hold the charges.
Yeah. I remember how upset my partner was in doing that, but he realized afterwards, and I'm getting ahead of the story here, that was an essential ingredient in this process. It had to happen that way. Otherwise, we would have been cherry-picked for years. They would have done everything that they could.
So in 2006, we end up in the courts.
Yes.
What happens?
It was about a 3-week-long court case. There was a lot of banting back and forth. We actually put forth what's called a necessity defense. It's a rarely used part of Canadian law that allows you to maybe break the law if it's going to save a person's being.
So there's a biblical principle of life over law.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And you see that. I mean, Jesus himself, Yeshua, talks about that principle about, who here has an ox that falls into the mire that won't pull him out on the Sabbath day, right?
Yeah, life over the law.
Life over law, right? That you preserve life because ultimately life trumps it. And so in essence, there's built into the Canadian judicial system, into Canadian law, the same principle applies. And that's a defense of necessity, that you had no choice but to break the law. Otherwise,
yeah,
people would die.
Exactly. People would have died. We already knew that people had died because you've mentioned him before, Ron Lejeunesse, the Western Regional Director for Canadian Mental Health Association, bore witness in that trial that he was aware of a number of suicides, and he laid the blame directly on the shoulders of Health Canada for their irresponsible actions in taking this life-saving product, away from the people that needed it. Absolutely.
Right.
And there was a lot of jockeying back and forth. We came to the point where the judge had to hold what's called a voir dire. A voir dire is a trial within a trial to determine whether or not we could use the necessity defense. And he was clearly against it. He demonstrated. Mm-hmm. He said, I don't agree with this. I'm required under the rules of court to hold this voir dire and to be able to make a judgment on it. So I have to do this. But I'm not agreeing with it at all. As far as I'm concerned, this is a statutory defense, and it's going to remain that way, clearly. And so it was a very interesting contest. He brought Sean Buckley forth and Kent Brown, who was leading on behalf of the Crown. And he said, here's the name of the game, the voir dire. This afternoon, you're going to present for 1 hour, Mr. Buckley. After Mr. Brown presents his offense, or whatever you want to call it, and then I'm going to return to my chambers for half an hour, and I'm going to come forth and I'm going to adjudicate. But chances are I'm going to go in favor of the Crown on this case. So you can clearly see that the judge was prepared to rule against us.
And if you didn't have that defense of necessity, what would have been the outcome of that court
We
case?
would have lost.
Almost guaranteed.
And they would have devoured us.
Right.
Yeah, we would have paid the $350 loss, while the government of Canada had put in over $2 million to try and shut us down.
So they used $2 million of taxpayer money.
Sure, to try and pull the rug out on this. This was important to them.
To create an affront on the Canadian public.
Yeah.
On the mentally ill. It was a battle really against the mentally ill is what it was.
That's what it was. The weakest, most defenseless part of our society. And the Canadian government moved against them.
Yeah.
You think about that for a while.
In favor of big pharma.
Yeah. We've seen it.
Yeah.
If you had told me 20 years before that this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed it. No, because I believe that our government was clean and that they were there to work on behalf of Canadians. No, they're not. Over 300 people disappeared off the database. People don't talk about it when they have a suicide in their family.
No.
Destruction, wholesale destruction took place. And they created a crisis with their crisis line. They did everything they can to malign us. And I don't take an affront or an offense at that. What I'm offended over is the fact that the weakest part of our society was maligned and not shielded and protected.
Like they should have been. Exactly. Which highlighted that Health Canada had no interest in the health of Canadians at all.
It's absolutely true.
And we see that evident today.
It hasn't ended.
So now during this time, you have the voir dire surrounding the defense of necessity, and it's not looking good. What is it looking like between you, Sean Buckley, and David Hardy?
Okay, I'll speak to that matter. This is off record. Unless you want to put it on the record. Okay? Yeah. So you can splice and dice and do whatever you want.
Is this something that you want for public consumption?
I don't know. Maybe it should be for public consumption.
We can take it out, you can talk, and we can take it out after.
You can take it out if you don't feel good about it.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So when we left the courtroom, after the judge heard the 1-hour presentation from being led by Kent Brown of the Crown, and the 1-hour presentation of defense led by Sean Buckley, the constitutional lawyer, and we left the courtroom, I remember how upset Sean and David Hardy were. We've lost this. You heard him. You heard and saw him, and you heard what he said. That most likely he was going to rule in favor of the Crown on this voir dire. He's already, I'm not going to say prejudiced himself, but he already has that thinking.
He has a preconceived notion as to where it should go.
And he exhibited that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because I couldn't believe it. We hadn't come this far to fail. We hadn't been protected in every day of our life in all the trials that we went through as a people, as a company, in trying to help fathers' most weakest children, the so-called mentally ill, just to lose it at this point. So I went down into the bowels of the Calgary courthouse. It's a large, large building, and there wasn't a lot of activity on the south end of the courthouse, and I went down there by myself. And I sat. And I said to God, Lord, if you don't come, we're going to lose this battle, Lord. It's stacked against us. Father, you have to come. And I heard a voice that said clearly to me, well, it never was your battle. It was always my battle. And I felt the encompassing of the Spirit, and I saw it in my mind. I knew that we had won in that very second, absolute second. I want you to know that God is real, and I'm not giving you a preaching here, people. I want you to know that He has a direction and a plan to help and to save His children. And in that very moment, it was revealed to me that we were going to win. I was on a cloud nine. I was filled with joy and exhilaration. I went back. It was almost hilarious. Those poor guys, they were outside, David and Sean Buckley, the lawyer, and they were just beside themselves. We've lost, we've lost. I put my hands on their shoulders and I said, we won. Praise God, we have won. I went into the courtroom. There was nobody in there, and I closed the door behind me and I locked it. And I knelt down and I said, God, please inspire the mind of this good judge. I believe he's a good man, Lord, but help him to see the truth and the validity of all that's happened here. Protect him. Protect us. Don't allow evil in here. Let your light shine within here, Lord. And I got up off my knees after hosting that prayer, and the clerk of the court came in, and she said, "Oh, you're in here." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, open the door if you would and invite them in because the judge is ready to adjudicate." And I opened the door and I said, "Come on in." I sat beside Sean, and here's David over here. And he came in and he looked different. He looked different. His countenance was raised. And he said, "After much thought and consideration, I am going to go with Truehope. I adjudicate that they have won the right to use the necessity defense. Move on." There you go. Do I believe that we've been blessed? Do I believe that this wonderful mechanism that was put together by two dummies? Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Two fools. We didn't know what we were doing. And look what it did. Look at the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who have been healed. I heard people say to me, "I'm back in my relationship. I was divorced. I remarried. I'm back in my career pursuit. I'm back in my educational pursuit where I came from." I heard it time and time again. And I don't make the claim that it belongs to me. We were gifted. It was a gift from the heavens. True. And that's what happened. And then it was 3 months later that the judgment finally came out. Praise God. We won. They lost. And they were buried in the press. There was so much bad press against Health Canada. But you know, they phoned me about a month later and they said, "Just want to let you know we don't have to listen to the judge."
Because they also appealed, didn't they?
They were going to appeal. They did actually file an appeal.
Yep.
And I told Sean, "You're going to go for abuse of process, and we're going to bring families in here who lost their loved ones. Are you sure they want to do this? Because there could be some possible jail time for some Health Canada agents who broke and violated the Constitutional Act of 1987.
Right, and actually engage in criminal negligence resulting in death, up to 25 years in jail by the Criminal Code of Canada.
Absolutely.
So they're liable, they've engaged in legitimate criminality, and yet they're charging you with criminal charges.
Yes.
And now they're appealing, and now you're saying, okay, we're pulling out the big guns in essence.
Yeah.
We're going for liability here.
We're going to take out all the stops. And we'll be talking to the media, and you're going to be interviewing families, media, where their young 18-year-old daughter suicided because she lost hope. I'll never forget the time that I got a phone call. "Hello? Hi," they pushed me through from the switchboard. I said, "Yes, okay. And what is your name?" Da-da-da-da. I won't repeat his name. He said, "I'm going to talk to you. I'm a trained Canadian Armed Forces sniper. I don't miss. My wife has been well out of 18 years of absolute horror. She has been well for 2 years because of your product, and she's back in the hospital. You're going to give me the name of 3 Health Canada agents, and I'm sure you've got some addresses to help me expedite this. I'm going to take them out."
That's how serious.
That's how serious. We're talking life and death here.
Yep.
We're not talking about taking away a card game or something simple that Health Canada could ban because of safety regulations. We're talking about lives here. And I said to him, "You know, brother, I understand what you're going through. I get really angry at what they've done because people have suicided. And I'm so sorry that your wife's in there, but I can't help you. You do what you have to do or what you want, but please don't involve me in it because that's not my modus operandi. I love you, brother. I hope you're okay." Click.
Yeah.
When that came up, because they sent a double spy to Ian Stewart,
Double agent, yeah.
double agent,
Yeah, trying to play the side of the good cop on our end.
Yep,
Yeah.
playing the game. And he told her, when he decided to discontinue the communication, he said, you better tell them up there, because I know you're reporting to them. I know exactly what you're doing, because I'm reporting back to Tony as well. But you better let them know that if it wasn't for Tony Stephan, you'd have 3 dead ponies in Health Canada. Because that guy was serious, and he was apparently really good at what he did.
Yep.
And they owe him something. Well, the next week, the head of the NHP directorate quit.
Yep. Because he saw what they were doing was incredibly dangerous when they're messing around with the lives of Canadians.
Don't mess around with people. We don't have the right to trifle with the lives of the children of God. And
Yeah.
we're all children of God. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we have now concluded the portion surrounding the court case. Things continue, though. Like we think that there's a victory. Now, I guess we should probably conclude what that victory looked like. So not only were you found not guilty, there was an appeal that took place. They withdrew the appeal, right?
Yep.
It was a precedent-setting case that was protective for the whole natural health product community
Absolutely.
across Canada. So there were so many blessings that came out of that court case.
Well, and that Truehope case has been used as case law in many actions in Canada. The necessity defense that was won.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It was crucial. So this was a momentous time in history in relation to Canadian law, in relation to protective measures being put around the natural health community, because it was under fire significantly before that. Other companies like Purica and Strauss were being attacked.
Yes,
right?
they were.
Right? And so this was a real blessing in disguise. It didn't look like it initially, but it proved to be a tremendous blessing. And that really, you got this discovery it's made. We're now protected because the judge didn't just say not guilty. What else did he say?
Well, he said that the Truehope, well, number one, it was a finding of fact that this product works.
Right.
Well, because Dr. Charles Popper, the famous psychiatrist from McLean Hospital, Harvard University, bore witness that this works.
Right.
And that he's transferred his patient pool over to Empower Plus. And he no longer counsels them against suicide.
Right.
He's counseling them on what university courses they should take.
Right.
That's the psychiatrist.
Yep.
He was responsible for bringing lithium to America for child practice. He was the editor-in-chief of one of the
Journal
Child
of
and
Adolescent Psychopharmacology.
psychopharmacology.
Because he's also a psychopharmacologist as well. He's
Yes.
a world-renowned psychiatrist and psychopharmacologist.
Yeah, and he bore witness in the trial. And Dr. Bonnie J. Kaplan bore witness in the trial.
Now, there's one particular statement he made during the trial that stands out. He said that Empower Plus was more effective than any medication or combination of medications that he's ever used before.
Exactly.
And he performed a study that showed 19 out of 22 of his patients on the Empower Plus had a significant effect from it beyond what they would normally see from medications.
Exactly.
19 out of 22, right?
And he was quizzed by the lawyer, Sean Buckley, on medication reduction. He said, we don't reduce medications normally, we add on.
Right.
If it's a difficult case, we add on. But he said, I learned from Truehope how to adjudicate the use and titrate the medications off. They are the experts. Now, when I say that, I'm not boasting.
Right.
I'm saying that knowledge that we obtained was part of the gift that came with this whole thing.
Yeah, and it also came due to a lot of trial and error with
Sure,
thousands and thousands of people that were willing to do anything it took to get off those medications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was nothing but a blessing. And he indicated that the product works. That was established, finding of fact. And another finding of fact is that the Truehope support program is inextricably tied to the use of the product.
And he referred to us as the experts in that field, that he
Yes.
was being educated. Here he is, an educator, co-authoring textbooks, psychiatric textbooks across the country.
Yep.
And he's referring to us as the experts in relation to the support protocols, that when he has a question,
He would come to us. I spoke with Charles Popper many, many times. What do you think about this, Tony? What would you do?
Yep.
And he became very good at it. And he saved a lot of people,
Yep.
a lot of youth. He had a lot of youth in his practice.
Yep.
And their lives were blessed ultimately because of this.
Yep.
No question. So those two findings of fact were critical. They
and,
were.
And that resulted in the judge not only pronouncing a not guilty verdict, but also
We were chastened. He said, had you listened to Health Canada and followed their counsel and shut this down, you could be in court today for criminal negligence causing death, because you already knew, you already had the evidence of efficacy that this product did wondrous things.
yeah, and criminal negligence resulting in death isn't a $350 fine.
No, it's not.
It's an up to 25-year jail sentence in Canada.
That's right.
So
So we were warned.
yeah,
Don't follow the regulator.
so now we need. So in essence, it was a mandate saying you have no choice but to disobey Health Canada if they try to get you to shut down.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what a beautiful thing that is.
Well, it went worldwide. I remember in America, it hit the press down there. I remember one of the top nutritional, protective, I should say, lawyers in the country who hosted an hour show every week. He hosted us on there and talked about how this was an amazing thing that they could use, this gift of this judgment, because it took place in another democratic nation, and they could utilize this to protect themselves against the regulators' abuse down there.
And was that Jonathan Emord?
It was.
Okay, well-known advocate for freedom and health in matters, but lawyer, very well spoken. Yeah.
Very well known.
Okay, so Jonathan Emord. So we conclude the portion surrounding the court case, but the drama actually doesn't end there, does it?
No.
The story is so rich. The history of Truehope is so rich and event-filled that it could actually make for a full docu-series easily.
Yeah.
And a docu-series that would keep people glued in, saying, this possibly couldn't happen in real life. How could a family go through this much over something this simple? But yet, here we are. Well, we've just passed the 90-minute mark of this second edition of this podcast, which I thought we'd be done in one, maybe two, but we're going to continue this on tomorrow. So we'll probably show up in different clothes tomorrow. And you're, as an audience, you're going to hear some really exciting stuff, because the battles did not end. In fact, in many instances, they just got ramped up, and it became not just about us, but about the freedom of Canadians as a whole in various arenas. And so we'll continue on the story tomorrow, and we'll probably be able to close it up in the third episode. We'll talk about the full 30 years of how we got to where we are today, and also where we're going to continue to go, and where our hearts are in that matter as well. So I encourage the audience to continue on to episode 3. And if you haven't yet viewed episode 1, you'll definitely want to do so as to see the foundation, the answer to prayer that brought this tremendous, miraculous discovery about, that's gone on to bless hundreds of thousands of lives. And we'll continue to hear from Anthony Stephan, my father, who has clearly proven to be a tenacious man, that when he knows what's right, he takes a bold stand for it against all adversity. So thank you, Father, for sharing all this tonight.
And thanks for bringing all this good information out, so that the good people out there can have this knowledge. It's truth. And it establishes a validity that there's a power above us, and we can overcome everything in God. Everything. Whether it be a bad relationship, whether it be a financial crisis in our lives, it doesn't matter. Through God, we can overcome all things, because I'm here to tell you, We were just a pair of dummies that were in the right place at the wrong time.
Well, and the evidence speaks for itself. When we take a look at all the battles, as we'll continue to communicate tomorrow, there's no way that we would have been able to get through those battles successfully.
True.
Had the hand of God not been with us to deliver us, to protect us, and to ultimately bring about much good as a result of it.
I can't change the tide, but he did.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll see you in episode 3.